بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه أما بعد. If you look at the life of Al-Imam Al-Nawawi, may Allah have mercy on his soul, you would see wonders, and you would fail to know where to begin and where to end. And you know that we are not here to discuss his biography, as this is known to most of you, nor to discuss the great amount of literature that he had left behind, and people until this date still benefit from his works, which means, with the grace of Allah, that his intention was sincere for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yet, we have to begin somewhere. And as all beginnings of talks about great imams of Islam, we know that he was born in the 7th century of the Hijrah calendar, and to be specific, on the year 631. And if you go through his upbringing, you'll find that he started to memorize the Quran when he was 7 years old. And this was by the initiative of his father, who found out that this boy had potentials. He sensed that he had a lot of goodness in him and that he was smart. Ibn al-Attar heard a story from Al-Nawawi's father, indicating that when the child was 7 years old, and on the night of the 27th of Ramadan, which the majority of scholars say that this is the most likely night to be Laylatul Qadr, or the night of decree. On that night, while all of them were asleep, this 7-year-old child woke up seeing the house filled with light. And he asked his father, he woke his father up and said, "Father, what is this light filling up every single inch of our house?" Because usually when he wakes up, he sees pitch black and darkness. So the father woke up and said, "Son, I don't see anything." And he woke up the whole family, and they all said, "We do not see anything." Yet the 7-year-old child insisted that the house was full of light. The father recognized that there is a possibility that his son is witnessing the night of decree, and that Allah has blessed him to see it, or to see signs of it. So he instead his family, and they prayed the rest of the night for the sake of Allah. And this shows you the blessing of this child over his family, how he made them pray the whole night, hoping to achieve the reward of praying the night of decree. He, at this early age, did not like to play with children, and he isolated himself from associating with kids and playing with them. It reported in his biography that children of his age, his neighbors, forced him once to play with them and to join them in their game. So he started to cry, trying to escape them, because he did not like to waste his time and to join them in playing. And that is why his father took him to the Quran teacher, and he asked the Quran teacher to teach him the whole Quran so that he would memorize it all. And this is exactly what happened. The Quran teacher started teaching him Quran, and he reported that he found so much smartness in this boy that he learned the Quran so quickly, and he understood the meanings of the Quran, and he was a perfect student. What is the lesson to be learned from this? Well, it tells us the great role of the parents in upbringing their children. The Prophet told us this, alayhi salatu wasalam, when he said in the authentic hadith that there is no newborn child that is born except to be born on fitrah, to be born on tawheed, on the pure belief in the existence of Allah. Then the Prophet goes on to say, yet his parents make him a Jew, a Christian, or a fire worshipper. So from this hadith, we learn that the responsibility of upbringing your child is a grave and serious one that should not be taken lightly. Upbringing a child can be by being a role model for him. It can also be by giving him advice and giving him wisdom. And it can also be by facilitating things for him to be a good student of knowledge, to be a good practicing Muslim, and to upbring him in a way that pleases Allah the Almighty. This is exactly what Al-Nawawi's father did, and he did a very good job. When he was in his teens, his father, after acquiring the knowledge of the Quran and memorizing it by heart, took his son to learn more knowledge, sciences of Islam. So he took him to a school called Al-Rawahiyya school, where a different number of imams and sheikhs would give their lectures in different kinds of sciences. And he lived in that school. He stayed there, acquiring knowledge, reading books to sheikhs where they would correct him and explain to him things that he did not know. It was reported that he used to, on his own, read 12 different types of sciences during the day and the night. 12 different classes. And he was an imam in the sense that he was a true scholar. He was knowledgeable in the Quran and the tafsir of the Quran. He was knowledgeable in the sciences of Quran. He was knowledgeable in the language which is Arabic and the sciences of Arabic. He had 2 or 3 different classes a day in different branches of the language, the Arabic language. He was knowledgeable in the sciences of hadith, which meant that he knew how to authenticate hadiths and how to differentiate fabricated ones from authentic ones. He knew the mustalah al-hadith. He also knew the hadith itself, and he explained the hadith and interpreted it in the form that was known to us all. Once you read one of his books, for example, he had Sharh Sahih al-Imam Muslim, which up to this moment, it is one of the references that all students of knowledge and all scientists and scholars refer to when they are explaining a hadith in Sahih al-Imam Muslim. It's in great volumes. He wrote this. Not only that, he had knowledge in fiqh, and he was one of the great imams in the fiqh, or the school of thought of Ash-Shafi'i. So he was one of their great imams. He had a book called Rawdatul Talibin, which is, I think it's about 9 volumes on fiqh of Imam Shafi'i. Not only that, he was not an imitator or a muqallid, he was an imam of ijtihad as well. And he wrote the book that he did not complete, but up till today it was one of the great references of fiqh, which is called Al-Majmu' fi Sharh al-Muhazzab. And it is in great volumes. It's a big, big book. And if you go through it, it illustrates how knowledgeable this person, this imam, this great scholar was. And with all this knowledge, it is not per se isolating the knowledge bit. This scholar, this imam, was a very balanced person. He did not devote all of his time to compiling, reading, learning, and teaching sciences. He had great fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. And at the same time, he spent most of his time dividing it between worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal, between reciting the Quran a great deal and making dhikr, and compiling different books of sciences, and also enforcing virtue and forbidding vice. He was balanced in the sense that his time was utilized. Nowadays, we sometimes fail to allocate similar scholars. We either have one da'iyah, or we have someone who is specialized in fiqh, or someone who's specialized in tafsir, or someone who's knowledgeable in Arabic language. But it is very rare to find someone who has all these sciences at the same time. And scholars say that Imam Al-Nawawi was not more knowledgeable than his peers, but he became famous and more well known than his peers because of his fear of Allah, and because he used to occupy his time in worshiping Allah. His night was completely devoted to worshiping Allah, reciting the Quran, and compiling the beneficial sciences. Okay, what can we learn from this? Well, scholars say that the reasons he was so genius and so productive in Islamic sciences, there are two reasons. Normal reasons and a special reason. The normal reasons, we all can attain them if we work a little bit hard. Among these normal reasons, you would find that his journey to acquire knowledge, living in a school or in a place where knowledge is being taught during the day and the night, his great enthusiasm in acquiring knowledge, and his full devotion to acquiring the sciences of Islam. So he was not part-time like most of us. He devoted his whole time for learning and teaching for the sake of Allah. Among the normal reasons that we all can attain, he had a lot, and I mean a lot, of lectures, whether learning or teaching. And the more you teach Islamic sciences, the more research you do, and the more benefit you would have upon the others. And this is why it is very crucial and essential for Muslims not only to learn, but also to teach. Because it is said that money, you have to pay zakat for that. The wealth you have to offer and pay zakat. And the knowledge you have, its zakat is to teach it to others. Among the reasons, he had an excellent memory, and he used to read a lot. And the majority of Muslims nowadays, even students of knowledge like us, we don't read a lot. We listen, we contemplate, but this is not enough. You have to read 5 or 10 books so that you can write one paper, one page. And Allah blessed him with knowledgeable imams and sheikhs to take care of him and to give him the knowledge they have, so that he would join all of that and come up with what he gave us from these beautiful books. And being in a place such as this school, Al-Rawahiyya school, gave him the opportunity to access great numbers of books. And at the same time, being in that school gave him the opportunity to teach. Now, all of these are normal reasons that we all can attain and we all can have. Unfortunately, even if you take your utmost care to get these reasons, it would not make you an imam or a student of knowledge like Al-Imam Al-Nawawi, without the special reason. And what is the special reason? Well, Allah says in the Holy Quran, fear Allah and Allah will teach you. This phrase was mentioned in the end of the longest verse in the Quran, known as Ayatul Mudayana, the verse of debt, which is in Surah Al-Baqarah, about four verses from the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2. Allah says at the very end, and fear Allah, and Allah will teach you, which indicates to us that Imam Al-Nawawi did not reach the level he had reached because he had a good memory only, or he had a number of good shuyukh, or he had lots of good books, and he devoted his time to acquiring knowledge. Not only that, there are thousands and thousands of people who do this, yet they fail to be imams. They fail to be scholars and students of knowledge. They fail to reach this level of acceptance among the Muslims. Then why was it? Well, because he feared Allah. And scholars say that this level of acceptance cannot be except to those whom their intention is sincere and clear for the sake of Allah, and their good deeds they offer, night prayer, fasting, and their fear of Allah that prevents them from falling into sin or from doing dubious things that there is a possibility that Allah Azza wa Jal does not approve of. He was among those who used to offer a lot of good deeds. Scholars say that he used to pray most of the night. One of the scholars said that I've witnessed what Imam Nawawi used to do during the night. I saw him one night standing next to a pillar in the masjid, praying for hours, only saying one verse, and that is, وَقِفُوهُمْ إِنَّهُمْ مَسْئُولُونَ. Allah is saying in this verse that make them stand because they will be held accountable. Make these people stand up on the day of judgment because they will be held accountable. And he used to repeat this verse and he used to cry in his prayer. It shows you that this person, this imam, this scholar, was not only a person of rhetoric. He was not a person that gave speeches like we do and gave lectures. He supported whatever he said with deeds. So he used to be the first one to ask people to do after he himself has done what is needed to be done. Al-Imam Al-Nawawi, may Allah have mercy on his soul, he used to be known not to be lured by this dunya. He used to wear hard type of clothes, rough and hard types of clothes. And he never ate from the gardens of Damascus where he used to live. He never ate from the fruit of Damascus that was brought to him, that was sold in the market, because he was afraid that it was not permissible. He used to only eat, and this has been narrated by so many of those around him, he only used to eat the bread, the figs, and some of the type of bakery that his father used to send to him from his hometown. And it is rough type of food that people would not be able to eat all the time. He would not eat meat, he would not eat chicken, he would not eat different types of cooking, because he was so afraid that the time would be lost in eating such fancy food or looking for such fancy food. So he used to only limit himself to eating figs, dry or fresh, and eating bread. He would not eat different types of fruit that was found in the market, because most of Damascus was endowments. So he was afraid that those responsible for such endowments would take the fruit and sell it for their own good, and hence it would not be permissible for them to sell. Yet, it shows us here a great deal of balance. Al-Imam Al-Nawawi, though he used to make this type of fruit forbidden for himself, just to be on the safe side, he would not make it forbidden upon the others whenever he was asked, which gives us a clear distinction between what you apply for yourself and what you give fatwa for the people. Because in his literature, in his works, it is found where he was asked a similar question, and he said, no, this kind of fruit is halal for us to buy, because even if there are doubts that it came from endowments and it is not the right thing for the person responsible for such endowments to sell it for his own benefit, when we buy it, we don't have knowledge of this. Therefore, not knowing whether it is halal or haram makes it by default halal. And this is cascaded to everything around us, because once you open the door for such doubts, it would never ever be closed. So one would go to buy something from the market, and then Shaitan would come to him and say, was this stolen, or is it really his? I will not buy it because I'm afraid it might be stolen. And if you would like to drink some water, you will get the Shaitan coming to you and saying that, is this water pure? Maybe it has a drop of impurity in it. Maybe it was originally impure and najis. And it goes on and on until Shaitan comes to you and says to you about your wife, maybe I divorced my wife while I was asleep. Maybe I divorced her 20 years ago and now I cannot remember. Maybe when she was young, my mother breastfed her. Or I suckled from a woman that also she suckled from when we were children, like infants or so on. And Shaitan comes to you until he destroys your life with these whispers. And Nawawi, may Allah have mercy on his soul, was not like this. He thought that limiting himself to the bare minimum of the things that he needs to sustain his living, to remain alive, was more than enough. So he did not need to eat from the fruit, which was dubious to him. Yet it was permissible, but it had a small percentage of haram, and that is why he decided not to eat from it. And this is a lesson for us to learn, and that is, whatever you think is good or bad for you does not mean it is good or bad for the rest of humanity. You have to judge things through the spectrum of the Quran and the Sunnah, and give the people the verdict through the Quran and the Sunnah. Now, what you apply to yourself, this is up to you. And this is between you and Allah, but you cannot cascade this to the rest of humanity. And one other lesson that we learn from Al-Imam Al-Nawawi is that this world, this life, was not his objective. His objective was to please Allah, to attain Allah's prize, which is paradise. And he was ready to do whatever was necessary to make him achieve this great and noble goal, even if it led to his own demise, even if it led to him being tortured or killed. Imam Nawawi, may Allah have mercy on his soul, was quite known to be a person of great bravery. He was known to go to the rulers, to the princes, to the judges, and would order them and instruct them and enforce them to with virtue and forbid them from vice. And he was never afraid. And he clearly stated this to one of his peers and scholars when he told him, take it easy, you're just throwing yourself into the dungeon of the lions. And he said, well, I would find great pleasure to be killed for the sake of Allah the Almighty. And this great story of one of the rulers at the time, and his name was Al-Zahir Bibas. This ruler wanted to take taxes from the people. So, as most rulers do, before doing this, he circulated a decree and he requested all the scholars of his kingdom to sign on it, approving taking these taxations from the people. And they all signed. So he was speaking to his minister and he said, has all the scholars signed? And the minister said, yes, my lord, except one. And he said, and who's that one? He said, Al-Imam Al-Nawawi, Abu Zakaria Yahya Al-Nawawi. So he instructed them to bring him to attend his court. So they brought Al-Imam Al-Nawawi. And he ordered him, said, sign the paper. And Al-Imam Al-Nawawi, not being intimidated, not being interested in this life like we are. See, whenever we do something or say something, at the back of our minds, we always thinking, what is there in it for me? Or if I do say something, or if I do this thing, would it affect my job? Would it affect my bonus? Would it affect my raise? True believers of Allah Azza wa Jal, true practicing Muslims would not go to that level. They do what they do seeking the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. Al-Imam Al-Nawawi was one of those. Imagine this great king with all of his army, with their swords, ready to strike whenever he just looks or blinks at them. Yet, Imam Al-Nawawi, attending his court, saying, no, I will not sign. So the man says to him, this great king, why not? With an arrogant tone, Imam Al-Nawawi talks to him bluntly. He says, O king, you and I know that years ago you were a slave owned by Prince so-and-so. And after you were freed by the prince, mashallah, you became a king. You have 1,000 slaves of your own. And each slave of yours has these great big ranches, and he has workers, and he has cattle, and he has gold. And also you have 200 women slaves in your palace, and they have lots and lots of jewelry, and they have their own servants to serve them only for your pleasure. Well, if this is the case, let all these 1,000 slaves of yours sell their farms and ranches that belongs to you, and let them sell all what they have under their hand, and then you sell these 1,000 slaves in the market, sell the jewelry of the 200 women slaves you have in your palace, and then sell your 200 slaves and use the money for your treasury. Use the money to support the army you're intending to build. Only then, if you need money, I will sign the paper that allows you to take taxation from your subjects and from the citizens of your kingdom. Al-Zahir Bibers, this king, was furious, and he said, get out of Damascus now. And Imam Al-Nawawi immediately complied, because he knows that he has to obey the orders of the rulers when they instruct with things that does not go against Allah's instructions. So he said, I will do that. And he left. And the scholars came to Al-Zahir Bibers telling him, what have you done? He is the most knowledgeable person in Damascus, and he is the most righteous person among them all. Without him, Damascus would not be the same. Ask him to come back. And he sent to him to come back, but it was too late, and he refused to come and live in Damascus. This great scholar, this great imam, if you look at his biography and if you read his achievements, you would be astonished to find such a man, as if it was a legend and not a man of the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ. And there are so many lessons to be learned, but I believe that this, inshallah, is enough, and it would do the job. And Allahu a'lam wa nisbatul ilmi ilayhi aslam, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina Muhammad.